I've closed six-figure jobs just driving in the car or just talking to somebody with my earbuds walking around in a warehouse because I've learned how to learn to listen, to understand, to process. I haven't done service work in a really long time, but in the last month, I've closed $170,000 worth of business, mostly just on the phone.
Chris Do, Emmy Award-winning designer, director, CEO and Chief Strategist behind Blind and founder of the Futur. He's a world-renowned branding expert and is on a mission to teach 1 billion people how to make a living doing what they love.
That I start to think, I want stuff. I want to be able to buy stuff and I have no money. And so I started thinking about like, how do I make money? Do I have a skill or labor that I can apply? So in me, I think started this spark about entrepreneurship, about trading skill or value for money.
If it's the cheapest way, if you're a startup business, what's the cheapest way to get customers? It's to start.
I've got a quick favour to ask you. Nearly 90% of people listening to this podcast right now don't follow or subscribe to us. And my goal is to get that down to 80%. So if you've ever liked an episode or a clip that we've put out, please could you click that follow or subscribe button. It helps us more than you know to bring more guests onto the podcast and put out better and better content for you. Thank you. Before we dive into this episode, I want to take a second to speak about our sponsor, Pith and Stem, who we are thrilled to have on this journey with us. As someone who is always looking for ways to improve my healthy hustle, Pith and Stem's drop-top desk stood out to me as the best full work-from-home solution on the market. The world of work from home is changing, and a laptop or screen perched on your lap or dining room table isn't enough anymore. It's imperative that we have a solution at home that matches our productivity station that we can have in our office. But of course, homes weren't made to be worked in, and not all of us want a dedicated study. That's why I'm so happy that Pith and Stem created this perfect solution. They designed this desk with both the needs of the professional and their home in mind. It's perfect because it allows me to have a full productivity station that suits my needs and helps me get the most out of every minute that I spend at it, not only so I work comfortably, but that I actually enjoy it. And the best thing about DropTop, I can close and lock it at the end of the day to keep work and home separate. And it looks awesome on the wall. You can get your DropTop desk anywhere in the world from pithandstem.com or just Google DropTop and you'll find it pretty quickly.
So Chris, at what point in your life do you think you realized that you were someone that was super creative and had a real passion for creativity?
Pretty late in life, I think. I think I, like many people, many young people, I dabbled with design, art, and craft, but I didn't think of much of it beyond that. I think my brain kind of exploded when I came across this book called How to Draw Comics the Marvel Way. It was brilliant. It was beautiful, and I admired the drawing so much. Sal and John Buscema, who illustrated many of the drawings in the book itself, was like, this is so good, but I'm not that good at drawing, so I'm going to put that dream away for a little bit. So it wasn't until later that I meet a real-life graphic designer, probably when I'm 17, 18 years old, a senior in high school, that I think, wow, there's a path here forward for me, but I'm not sure I'm that good yet. But now I know at least it's in this direction.
Yeah, I think it's so interesting because obviously when you're a kid, I would say most people are kind of creative, right? We don't really know anything different. We're just taught to play with colors and draw and whatever. But you tend to lose it as you get pushed towards whatever industry or thing you're gonna do. Maybe because your parents do one thing or the other. But talk to me a bit about your childhood. Were you around creativity? Were you around people that were solving problems, or was it a completely different path that took you to graphic design in the first instance?
Keep in mind, I'm a first-generation immigrant. I'm a refugee myself from Vietnam. My parents came to the United States in 1975 after the fall of Saigon. So the idea of creativity wasn't even part of the vocabulary at home or anywhere else. I wasn't surrounded by anybody really that was doing anything creative. My parents were just really busy working, trying to put food on the table, pay for rent, and put clothes on our back. And later on in life, I realized something. On my mom's side of the family, they're very creative. My mom's sister, my aunt, she's a singer. My uncle is a painter. Another uncle on the same side of the family is an inventor. So he's always dreaming up new things. And some of them are wild failures, but it's just that spirit of creativity ran deep on my mom's side of the family. But in most cases, all of their pursuits were impractical and not really a way to make to make a living.
I mean, even that in itself is interesting, right? Like I've been to Saigon, and it is a world of innovation and creativity in such different ways to what we would label as creativity, I guess, in the Western world, because they're just making ends meet, but in such incredible ways. And so, what was life like when you in '75 then arrived in the US?
What was life like?
Yeah, what was the transition? What was the difference?
Well, I'm too young to remember what the life was like before, but I think through some therapy, I inherited some of my parents' fears about entrepreneurship, about playing it safe and just getting your piece of the pie. So very much working from 9 to 5 and making work a priority. Education is very important. And that's what we saw. We were lower income. And so we at the beginning of our time here in America was about just making ends meet. It wasn't about anything fancy. The first place we stayed in was a 3-story brick house that we probably got through government assistance. It wasn't something we bought, probably something we rented with a weed-filled yard with a chain link fence in the front in a very poor neighborhood. I have memories of that. Those are happy memories, but I didn't realize at that time that we were really poor.
Yeah. So did at that time, obviously you didn't realize, but do you think there was a part of you that was like, okay, there's an expanse in my existence now. I feel like there's more I can achieve. Or do you think, again, you're probably too young to realize what the possibilities were going to be in front of you?
No, at that time, I'm just too young to even think. It's not until we moved to San Jose, California from Kansas City, Missouri, that I start to think, I want stuff. I want to be able to buy stuff, and I have no money. And other than your birthday, Christmas, or Lunar New Year, there was nothing, no way for me to make money. And it was a pretty dry spot in between those 3 points. And so I started thinking about, like, how do I make money? Do I have a skill or labor that I can apply? So I tried washing cars for money, but I realized as a small person, it's not so easy to wash big cars. It takes all day, and I'm tired after washing 2 cars. And you'd make like $8, and that's the extent of how I was able to make money. So in me, I think started this spark about entrepreneurship, about trading skill or value for money, and I couldn't figure out a way because I had no skills at that point.
Okay, but you didn't have the skills, but you knew you had that passion, or you read that book and you had that passion for creativity, and then it turned out to be a graphic design passion, right? So that took you to the Art Center College of Design to study, again, graphic design. So at what point during that, or did this even happen? Maybe I'm putting words in your mouth. When you're going through that college experience, you read the book and of course you start to love graphic design. But towards the end of that, you come out and you start this incredible company that's in animation. So what was the transition through college like, and what did it sort of open your eyes to?
I see you. So you're tracking my creative journey here.
A little
So
bit, yeah.
Yeah, I love drawing, and at Art Center, I get really like good instruction on how to draw. So I'm able to draw now, and I'm learning about anatomy and how to control the line and perspective and all the things that you're supposed to learn if you're going to pursue a career in illustration. But my area of focus is graphic design, and that's the manipulation of shapes, photography, and type on a page or a screen to communicate an idea or to express a feeling. And that was my pursuit. And I got really good relatively fast. And so I started getting a little bored. So I was thinking, what else can I do? Because I can do this. And I'm not even halfway through school yet. I feel like I'm starting not only surpassing my classmates, but surpassing some of my instructors. I know this sounds super cocky to say, but during critiques in different classes, I would feel like the instructor provided less value than I could, and I was helping my fellow classmates with their assignments. And so I was looking for some other outlet. I got a little bit into Macromedia Director, if you remember that. And I started playing around with 3D modeling with Stratus Studio Pro. And then I graduated into Alias Studio, a Power Animator. And that's where I was like spending a lot of my free time in these electives. And I remember one of my friends who was a grad student, he's like, and he would call me Doe. He's like, Doe, what are you doing studying all this stuff? This is pointless. Because he had a point. At that time, the hardware itself, the machine alone was like $35,000 for Silicon Graphics Onyx, 35 grand for a computer. And he said the software was another $30,000 on top of that. So he's like, you don't have 65 grand to be playing around. You can only do this while in school. But I didn't let that deter me. And luck or fate would have it that my last semester at Art Center was a class for motion design. It was an animation class, 2D animation using After Effects, at that point owned by Cosa, soon to be purchased by Adobe.
Wow. Okay. So there was a real track through there, and the cost was going to be the thing that was going to stop you doing it. So how did you then take that when you graduated in like 95 to then set up Blind? Because it was not a long gap, was it, between graduating college and going straight into the company? So how did you manage to go from, college was paying for a lot of this software and hardware to, okay, I'm going to pursue it and I'm going to go really into it, but there's some barriers.
Yes. So I'm done with school. I don't have a job because I quit my last job, and I was working in advertising prior to that. And so I got a job at Epitaph Records. This is the time when The Offspring was exploding and punk was having its moment in the sun.
We literally just saw them
But
play like 3 weeks ago in Dubai.
oh wow,
Yeah,
okay,
amazing.
yeah. So a buddy of mine was the creative director at Epitaph Records, and I really admire his thinking, his process, and his output. So I wasn't really that interested in working there, but I wanted to work there because of him. But a couple of weeks after starting the job, he was let go. Clash of personalities, I think. Yeah, and so my reason for being there was short-lived. And so 2 months in, I put in my notice, and then I left Epitaph, and now I was thinking, what do I do for work? So right around this time, I was freelancing around town, and it was just so happened that two very fortuitous things had happened. Number one was my work was featured on the Adobe After Effects, I guess, 2.0 CD-ROM. So everyone who purchased a copy of this new breakthrough technology, I guess, or the software, was now exposed to some of the student work. Well, I was one of, I think, a handful of students who was featured. And so I happened to be in Los Angeles. Motion design firms were in Los Angeles, so they would just reach out and say, hey, I'd like to talk to you. So I got a couple of freelance gigs, one from Focus Productions, and the other one from Novacom. And I started getting my feet wet. The number two thing that happened was my very dear friend, Kimberly Jew, was dating a guy named Kyle Cooper, later on to be her husband. But he was the guy who was heralded as the second coming of main title designers after Saul Bass. And he had designed this sequence, which was catching fire. It was for the movie Seven, directed by David Fincher. So I got work from him too. And so this is how I began my foray into the realm of motion design.
Okay. So that's so super interesting. So it was a set of events, really. And so that then took you, I think I'm right in saying like 15 years later, from when you started it roughly to winning an Emmy, right? For like contribution to animation.
Yes.
So that's insane. So what I'm really interested in, before the conversation goes towards, the things that we can do as entrepreneurs and creatives, I'm interested to hear what happened in those 15 years, roughly, the timescale is rough. What were the struggles that as a creative entrepreneur you faced in that time? Obviously it's relevant or relative because of the time difference to now, but what were the things that you experienced that now you can work with people to help them solve?
Yeah. I want to take a moment before I answer that question to point out a quotient of luck here. Okay. And I think the formula is being at the right time, at the right place, in front of the right person. So it's 1995. It's the birth of motion design. When I started, the term hadn't been coined yet. The right place was Los Angeles, the heart of the entertainment capital of the world, and in front of the right people. My friend Kim puts me in front of her boyfriend Kyle, and they're trailblazing. They're doing amazing things, working on main titles for Mission Impossible, Eraser, just basically every movie you could think of. They were working on. Very, very hot shop, and just being in LA. And what helped or contributed to some of my success was that my work was featured on a CD-ROM, which opened doors for me. And I can't manufacture that again, but I can tell folks who are entrepreneurial: Are you on the edge of what's happening? What's now? What's next? Are you in the town where that is happening in the most competitive place? And are you open to hearing those opportunities before you think they're opportunities? Because my friend Kim introduced me, but I could have turned that down. I could have not have stayed in his office and waited an hour and a half for that meeting, which took all of 5 minutes.
Yeah.
I could have walked away at any point, but I didn't. I stuck it through, and the results have borne fruit. So now let's get back to it. In the span of starting Blind as a motion design agency to winning an award, an Emmy for art direction and individual achievement, there are a lot of bumps in the road. Number one, starting a company without having worked for anybody means I don't know what I'm even doing. I don't know how to hire. I don't know how to do new business calls. I don't know how to bid. And all those things were a giant struggle. So if you can imagine the first 2 years when I was bidding on projects that were way above my weight class, I mean, I was bidding on projects for Sun Microsystems, for Janus funds, for Nissan Motors, like for Nissan USA, for Nationwide. And I was losing every one of those opportunities. And I would see the work that won, and I was thinking, man, the gap between where we are and what wins is very, very far. And I don't know what to do just yet. And so it was a lot of struggling in those first 2 years. Eventually, I meet the right people once again, meeting the right people helps. Karen Rainey helps me to learn how to bid, shows me how to do it, gives me the template to do it. So now I have a structure on how to bid. And for a very long time, for almost 20 years, we used some version of that bid form until I evolved from that. And that was what allowed us to grow our business, to land bigger clients. I learned how to pitch. I learned how to get on the call and handle myself against many other directors. The art of the new business call. And keep in mind, back in the mid to late 90s, early 2000s, and even into the very last moments of us doing work as an agency, it was all telephone based. It was all voice only. There was no video component. Zoom is a relatively new adoption of a technology. And so back then, you literally were just listening to words and trying to hear if somebody took a deep breath, if they strained to say a word, if there were pauses in what they were saying, to try to read between the lines, to understand the subtext, like I'm comfortable or I'm really excited to move forward with you. And so some people see me doing those role plays now. It's like, how do you learn how to do that? Well, you put 20 years into something, you get good at it or you go home.
Yeah, exactly. And now someone would think if you get called on the phone that it's a scam, isn't it? Like people are so uncomfortable with phone calls now. They want a face-to-face interaction. We've almost lost the trust that was so prevalent in that time. That's
A lot
amazing.
of people do. But, I'll tell you something. I've closed six-figure jobs just driving in the car or just talking to somebody with my earbuds walking around in a warehouse because I've learned how to listen, to understand, to process, to formulate questions that unlock or surface at least objections or deeper hidden desires. And I haven't done service work in a really long time, Freddie, but in the last month, I've closed $170,000 worth of business, mostly just on the phone.
Okay, that's really interesting. So there's clearly a super skill there in listening, right? And that's something that you learn during that time when there's no other way. Either you're going to meet face to face, but obviously the US is a big place, so it's going to be on the phone. So what I'm interested in, before we move slightly further on in sort of the journey and some other questions, is how do you think that your creativity, because I think all entrepreneurs are creative, clearly, we're all problem solvers, but people that go into creative roles within entrepreneurship is like it's a different level, right? You're a creative person. How do you think that held you back in any way during that ascension through the business? Because obviously it's not linear business growth. It's like up and down and win and fail and lose. And so how did it hold you back, if it did at all?
I think to be a really good creative person in the traditional definition, you have to be vulnerable. You really do. You have to be able to put out work that exposes a little bit of your soul and you get emotional. You become attached to the work. You defend the work because it's an extension of you, or at least you think so. And I saw that in a lot of the creatives that worked for me. And what I needed to do was to practice this form of passionate detachment, which is I'm passionate while doing the work, but detached from the outcomes. And I learned this in school, actually. So we would create layouts. And in one of my typography classes taught by Simon Johnston, he asked us to do 10 to 15 layouts every single week, plus 10 revisions from the previous week. So at any given week, you would be doing 20 to 30 layouts over and over again, the same bit of copy, just reworking it. And I can see that the people who are emotionally attached to their work had a hard time hearing the critique. They would get teary-eyed. They would feel their egos were bruised and they couldn't hear all the feedback. What I found more interesting, though, was when he would give feedback to other people's work, I can see in their faces and their body language, they were not interested in listening at all because that was someone else's work. It wasn't their work. But I thought, like, what a wasted opportunity because I am one of 20 students. So if I pay attention to 19 other students, I'm learning 20 times as much information. And I could see this evidence in that when he would tell somebody, don't do this layout, don't center your type because it's very hard to read. The next week, 5, 6, 7 of those 20 students would do the exact same thing. I was sitting there scratching my head thinking, didn't you remember when he said not to do that? And here you are doing the exact same thing again. It made no sense to me at all. Now, Freddie, you're laughing, but it's like, this is real. And this is how creative people look at this. This is an extension of who I am. When you critique the work, you critique me. And if it's not my work, then it's not me at all, and I don't really care, right? So we take this into the world of entrepreneurship. When I submit storyboards or a treatment, I talk about it as if someone else created it, not me. And in many instances, it was someone else because it was someone on my team who put it together. And having that kind of detachment from the work allowed me to speak about it very objectively and invited the prospects to give me very valuable feedback. Like, this is working, this isn't working. And I'd say, okay, what else are you seeing? What are you observing? And I would be able to take that information in. So I created an environment where they felt safe to tell me the truth. I would literally say this sometimes. I said, what would be very helpful for us right now is for you to give us really direct feedback. I'm a big boy. I have thick skin. I can handle whatever it is you're about to say. And I would much rather hear your actual feedback than for you to worry about some niceties or not bruising our ego, because there is no ego here. We're interested in developing something that you are excited about. And I noticed a big difference. So some of my creatives, they would present the work and they would sit in on the call. They're not allowed to say anything, but they can hear the feedback firsthand. And I can see them like getting upset and they're like puffing and huffing in the background. I'm like, you stay quiet. I'm going to deal with the clients. And then later on, they would just storm off. I'm like, that's why they cannot interface with clients, because they don't have that that ability to separate emotion from hearing objective feedback.
It's such a good point, and it's actually so relevant to startup entrepreneurship, isn't it? Because everyone who started a business, as soon as they get some bad feedback, they take it so to heart. Or even if someone says no to a sales offer, you take it to heart because that's you on the line for them. And I think, I mean, just to get your say on this side of things, because the world has become a place where, as a business owner, most people need to create content. It's one of the best ways to reduce your cost to acquire customers and to grow your business. And still, people seem to have that, I'm going to say, lack of confidence, but perhaps that's actually what you're talking about, which is they're just too close to the end result. So with the Futur, your business now, you mentor thousands of people and you're working with big companies to consult them with your team and all sorts of different elements. When you see or you come across this business owner or creative who is struggling with, the confidence, if I'm going to label it, what's your piece of advice to them to say, you need to get over this and you need to detach yourself maybe from the result and create that content and grow or build?
So their fear is in making content, right? So then I would ask them, what is your plan on how to acquire new leads? So it's hard for us to decide if I should do something if I don't have any alternative. So it's either yes or no. So I asked them, what's the alternative? And so why don't you channel them, Freddie?
Okay.
Tell me.
Yeah.
What are they going to say? I usually know how this conversation goes, but you might surprise me.
Okay. I doubt I'm going to surprise you. Okay. So, I just feel like I'm too nervous to start doing Instagram content. I can't put myself out there. My friends and my family might see.
Okay. That's fine. Let's take the Instagram content marketing thing off the table. What's the alternative for you to generate new leads?
I have to go and meet more people and run paid ads.
So meet people in real life, IRL,
Yep.
and then do paid media, so run ads. I said, okay, so let's look at both those two options. First, are there any other options that you can think of that you can do to get leads?
Cold outreach. Yeah,
Cold outreach. Whew. So that's picking up the phone, talking to strangers.
Yeah.
Or sending cold DMs to folks.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Of these three, meeting people in real life, doing paid media, or cold outreach, which is most appealing to you or least gross to you?
Least gross paid ads.
Paid ads. Okay. Paid ads requires what?
Capital.
Do you have it?
For this scenario, I'm going to say no.
Yeah, because most people who need leads don't have money. It's
Exactly.
a catch-22.
Exactly.
I would buy more ads if I had more clients, if I had more money, but I don't have clients, I don't have money, so I can't run ads.
Yep.
So that's probably not a good option for most people. But number two is, have you tried running a meta campaign before? It's not that easy to get clients, especially for a service professional. Like buying a widget, a coffee cup, a pair of socks, not that hard. Show the product. If it's a good product, people will buy. But selling your personality, selling your creativity via a paid ad, it's not the most confidence-inducing thing for me to do. When other people are getting work organically through awards, through visibility, through association, you're out in the streets pumping out ads. That doesn't exactly bode well for your skill level. Why is this one person running paid ads? And to date, I've not run into a single paid ad for graphic design services, not for identity design services. It's not happened. I'm not saying it's not happened ever, but it's not happening within my feed. Perhaps you've seen something different, Freddie. Have you?
No, I haven't.
Right. There's probably a good reason. For that same reason that they don't have the money, and it actually erodes credibility. Because when we're talking about buying something that's a couple $100, you could do that through ads. When we're talking about something in thousands or tens of thousands or 100,000s, you're not going to run a paid ad for that because it's a very high ticket offer that you have with a high touch service that it feels cold and distant and incongruous with buying something very high touch. You don't buy $1 million real estate just because people are running ads and you just make a decision on a click. You really talk to a broker. You visit the site. You survey the neighborhood. You talk about walkable amenities and things like that. And that's something that you experience and not just something that you see online. Now, yes, you can generate interest initially, but then you would have to have a sales team because the first part is there's paid media. You get an interest, but then somebody calls you on the phone and now what? Now you have a new problem. Now you have to pitch yourself. You have to sell yourself. So the thing that you thought was easiest is not really an option. So now between meeting people in real life and cold outreach, which is the second thing you'd like to do?
Meet people in real life.
Meet people in real life. Okay. Most creatives I know are introverts and they would rather just stay in front of the computer and not go out. Now, the question for you, are you an extroverted person? Do you look forward to meeting strangers?
Yeah.
You do. Okay. Are you in a city where that's possible, where there's lots of activity happening?
Yes.
Okay. Have you been doing this before?
Yes.
Okay. And what were the results?
It costs money to go to the events.
Yes.
It's inefficient because you don't know who you're going to meet. You have to go to a lot of them to get any clients back. So it's low. It feels like low ROI.
Low ROI. Okay.
And it relies on you.
Yeah. You are an anomaly in the sense that you like to go out, you want to meet people, and you've done it, and that you have the money to do it, and you have the tenacity to go and approach people. And even still, as an ideal case here, you have had low ROI. And I've done these things too, Freddie. I've gone to trade shows, conventions, exhibitions, and I'm thinking everybody here is looking to sell services. It's a very crowded, noisy space. I'll meet somebody, we'll strike up a really good conversation, we'll exchange information. As soon as the event's over, you reach out and you get nothing. It's because they were being polite. They're all in the spirit of like, yeah, let's meet, let's talk, let's collaborate. What you got going on? And unless you're super hyper persistent at this, borderline kind of harassment, I don't think it's ever going to bear fruit. I'm not saying I'm very good at this kind of thing, but I've tried a couple of times. It's not been very productive for me personally.
But I guess the point, what we're getting to the point here is that what you're doing is you're logically breaking down that doing content is the cheapest and easiest, if you do it the reps in, way to get clients.
Well, I don't want to make that argument. I'm going to help you make that argument for yourself. I would like for you to land there. It's the most cost-effective, maybe not cheapest, most cost-effective, authentic, value-driven, permission-based way for you to signal to the market what you do so that they volunteer to work with you.
And I think that word authenticity is so important, right? Because everyone's saying that the price of ads is going up. People are less and less trusting because in the B2B space, at least, funnels are just so incredibly obvious now and they're everywhere. So the point becomes, how do we keep authenticity and trust high? And I guess my question to you would be, has the word trust changed its meaning because of AI? You know, how do we keep and maintain trust with prospective clients or with our current clients or with people in general when there's AI where people are not quite sure if it's real? Is that a video of someone or is it an AI version? Is that who's on the phone? Is it a Google bot or is it a real person? What's your opinion on content creation and entrepreneurship with AI very much with us?
Okay. Backing out just a little bit.
Sure.
Branding is how you build trust at scale. The name of the game is we're buying and selling trust. And if you're not building trust, you're losing it. So when you say this is a when you say this is a 4-star resort and people show up and the amenities are not working and it's dirty and the surface is really bad, you've lost trust. And it's very hard to regain that trust. If you do a good job, they tell a person. If you do a bad job, they tell 10 people. So this is all we have. We have our word and how we show up and how we deliver on a promise that's made. And if you break that promise enough times, you're going to be out there hustling, spending a lot of money trying to convince new people that you are what you say you are. So we really have to think about trust. Before we even get into AI, this is a sad component. People who are very good at writing, who understand the game of marketing, who understand how to run ads, have been sucking money out of the system for quite a long time while giving very little back. They run events. They run free events to get you to a paid event. And then you go to the paid event and they sell you the mastermind version of the paid event. And when you go to the mastermind version of the paid event, they sell you the platinum version of that and the executive platinum version of that. And it's just a nonstop selling you to the next thing. And they give you just enough value that you think, wow, this is pretty good. I wonder what the next step is. And before you know it, and sadly, the internet's filled with stories of people losing tens of thousands, sometimes going into debt, leveraging their homes to be able to pay for these programs. And the reason why they do this is because the people at the end of this are very charismatic. They know how to make you feel seen and heard. And let's face it, no matter how good your childhood was, it was not ideal. It was not perfect. We were lacking a little bit of that support, love, and understanding from one or both parents. And now we're looking for it from strangers. We're a bunch of children trapped in the skin of an adult and needing that little, like, good job, Johnny. Way to go, Mary. We believe in you. This is amazing, and you're a good person. You're worthy of love. You're deserving of love. And so we wind up spending money in these programs, and then what happens is we start to paint the world with these broad strokes to say, everyone's a scammer, everyone's a fake guru, everyone's out to get my money, not giving me value. So trust is really kind of at a premium today. Once you add in AI, it becomes even more difficult, and the game becomes even scarier. If you find someone using AI beyond it being a tool, then you have to be very skeptical of that person. And for now, it's still pretty easy to spot AI-generated content, comments, video, voice, etc. And you have to ask yourself, is this what this person stands for? So this is why I'm not a fan of faceless content, where people are using AI to write the scripts, AI to read it, AI to perform it, and they just want to hide in the background. What are you really selling then? If this is your best foot forward, then I'm afraid of what the rest of the body looks like. Excuse me. All right. So I'm going to caution everyone to use AI as a supplemental tool to enhance what you do, not to replace what you do. I was recently speaking at South by Southwest. I said a lot of people are experimenting with this, where they say, AI, you come up with the ideas. I will do the labor. AI, you figure out what to say on Instagram and I'll actually produce it and I'll interact with people. AI, you think of the business and I'll be the labor. I think that's a really bad way to do business, because now you're saying I'm no more valuable than anybody else except for the physical labor in which I could supply to a machine. It should be the other way around. I will do the thinking. AI should do the labor. And if you have this formula in reverse, I'm worried about your potential future.
I think that's a really, really good way to look at it. Because to me,
I just want to briefly interrupt this podcast so I can talk to you about Nutrition Kitchen, who have kindly sponsored this episode. As entrepreneurs who are looking to stay as healthy as possible, fueling ourselves with high quality food without breaking the bank or wasting time can be tough day to day. Nutrition Kitchen solves that issue by delivering incredible meals to your door, tailored to your diet, whether you're trying to lose weight, build muscle, or maintain balance. They change their menus all the time so you can choose from a variety of dishes and leave the monotony of meal prepping behind. Now, back to our guest.
I don't know, obviously you have more insight than I do, but it feels like there's been a big shift towards longer form content in the last year or maybe 18 months. So I see that in myself as well. I'm way more interested in longer form content. And I think it's because with longer form content, there's not as much dopamine being released. Like, I feel like it's a bit of fatigue. Maybe I'm just getting old. I don't like to see that dopamine, the quick switches between videos. I like to have a bit more of a long form content, but also it builds trust and authenticity, right? There's a reason that you like watching someone or something for a period of time if you can get into it and build a relationship, I guess, and familiarity with them. Are you seeing a similar thing, or what's your thoughts on sort of the change?
You're absolutely spot on. I had a meeting with somebody from YouTube, product manager.
Oh, cool.
And they said that there's been a shift. And the shift is that more people are watching YouTube on the couch and not on their mobiles. That means it's a lean back experience, not a lean in experience. So people are chilling. They're watching YouTube in a much longer, in more in-depth ways. And they said that more people stream content on YouTube than the other streaming platforms combined, I think. So you take all the streaming platforms and you compare it against YouTube. YouTube probably posts numbers higher than all of them combined, at least higher than any one of them. I might have made up that combined part. And so people are leaning back. They said that long form is now getting its due. And the reason why is after a huge swing to the short form content, it's swinging back because everyone has realized, do you want to go in depth or do you want to have a surface level conversation with somebody? And that's it. So short form is really good. I have a minute, I have 2 minutes. I want to be entertained. I want to laugh. I want to learn something real quick. But am I actually going to apply any of it? Probably not. And so what happened at 2 VidCons ago, I was at one of the exhibit halls and it was really big. It was a ginormous room, probably capable of holding 1,000+ people. And when I sat there, there was a couple of TikTok stars on stage and I looked around the room. There were less than 50 people in that room.
At VidCon. Wow.
At VidCon. And they had grossly overestimated the traction or the stickiness that TikTok influencers have. They may have millions of followers on TikTok, but very few of them are actually loyal and they don't even know who they are. And I don't know about you, especially on TikTok, I didn't even have to follow people. I just scroll through the feed, the For You page, and it just like endless scrolling. I don't know who it is. I might like it. I might comment on it very rarely. I'll just watch it and move on. I don't remember who it is. And so I think people started to realize, unless you're selling a very low cost product or something, and you're just looking for broad appeal, the stickiness or the quality of the audience is much lower than that of, say, somebody who's a YouTube subscriber. Very, very different. Because when the YouTubers show up, their fans show up. And the reason why is they're doing long form content. They're asking for a commitment of time and they're going to entertain you or educate you or inspire you or something. And you too are making commitment. So the parallel I would say is like a potato chip or a crisp, I guess in the UK it would be called. That is like highly desirable. Eat something crispy, something salty. You get the kind of flavor, but there's very low substance there. It's high calorie and nutrient. It's low nutrient, high dense in calories, right? So you might eat that, but then you might want like a real meal, like a piece of fish or a piece of beef or pork or some other vegetable protein. And so that's the difference between short form and long form content. What kind of meal do you want to serve? What kind of relationship? What forms of trust do you want to build? And how sticky do you want it to be?
Yeah, that's a really good way of looking at it. Like, it feels like you can use short form, especially with long form. I've got some friends here. Some of them have got millions and millions of followers on YouTube and big podcasts, and they were like, 10,000 TikTok followers is equal to 1 subscriber on YouTube or 1 podcast listener. In their mind, at that time and place, that's how they see it. Just because of, like you say, the relationship that you build with someone via long form. So in terms of YouTube, right? What should someone be looking at? A business owner listening to this, an entrepreneur who wants to make some more content. What should someone be looking to do with their YouTube content in the next couple of years?
Okay. Let me answer it this way. If someone's thinking about using content marketing as a way to deliver long-term value, to an audience who volunteers to participate, then I'm excited for you. If you think this is a quick fix to like bring in a couple of customers, a start and stop kind of approach, I would tell you right now, find another way. Go get a sales rep, get an appointment setter, and do old school marketing funnels and paid ads. That will work, and it works for a lot of people. So it's a commitment to make content because it takes a while to find your voice, and it takes even longer to find your audience. And when you find your voice and the audience, I think magical things can happen. And I submit myself as evidence of someone who's been the beneficiary of creating content now coming up on 10 years. And being able to sit back and say, wow, doors have opened for me that I didn't even know existed, to rooms that I didn't even know were there. I just got back from South by. I spoke on a panel, and there was a woman named Jo, and she's the president of Whaler. And Brendan was the host or the moderator. He's the editor-in-chief of Fast Company. Now, you asked me 10 years ago, when I made that first YouTube video with my then partner, Jose, on UX design, did I ever think that in 10 years I didn't have to apply for this. I was invited to do it. Right? That's pretty wild. And here's where it goes. Excuse me. Here's where it goes. I'm also now an executive producer and a mentor on a TV show that's airing on one of the streaming networks. It's a season 2, and I'm a part of it. I just recently got contacted by a talent agency to be a character in a YouTube promotional video. I don't know if I'm going to make the cut, but I'm contacted for it, and it's a paying gig. I'm also going to be one of 3 mentors for the 3rd season of the UPS Store Challenge. All those things have opened up because I've committed to showing up day after day, making little bits of improvement along the way to show up 100% as myself and to get value and to be able to speak to people. That's pretty cool. So if you're a business owner and you think, wow, is that possible for you? It might be, but it has to be a multi-year commitment to being the best version of yourself and learning and growing and staying committed to it and being able to pivot and change as you go. I've had a lot of help along the way. People have helped us figure out how the YouTube algorithm works, how to design a thumbnail, how to figure out what the title should be, how to create hooks, and how to make your content engaging so people will watch. Those are skills that you acquire that you'll take with you everywhere you go.
It almost feels as well like it's not super helpful for someone just to tell you those things. That you've got to start doing it, show your commitment, then source the mentorship because you understand an element of it. Otherwise, you just get the Dunning-Kruger effect, right? Where you get that massive incompetence, but with confidence because you think you know what's going to happen, and then you understand how much you don't know, and you get that massive drop off of motivation. Chris, I want to ask you a question. I recently was on a ski trip with a guy you know as well, Dan Priestley, and I was interested in what he said on the Diary of a CEO last year, 2024, the first time he went on, or maybe it was this time actually, whatever, because there's clearly some sort of worry in some of these communities, maybe more in the UK communities, I'm talking about entrepreneur communities, around people don't want to become influencers. Business owners don't want to become influencers. They want to just utilize content to get clients, right, over time. So what did you say is the difference between a content creator for a business and an influencer, and how does someone navigate those that kind of set of words, I guess?
Okay. Good question. Everyone who creates content is a content creator. Not every content creator is an influencer. An influencer has a bad tinge because of what we associate with it. Loud mouth, people don't know what they're doing, running around, shaking their butt, or jumping in a Lambo, or flying in a jet. That's what we associate with an influencer. But if you take the concept of influencer back to like where we are more comfortable with it, who would we say is an influencer? Well, someone who's accomplished a lot of things, someone who's very successful in business and in life. We would think members of our faith who are thought-provoking, who provide spiritual guidance as an influencer. We would think of people who write best-selling books as influencers, people who speak from the stage, who have a way with words as influencers. So whoever you get your inspiration, your ideas, who helps you to reframe the world is an influencer. Fortunately, unfortunately today, people who are very good at playing the content game have also become influencers without a lot of substance. So it's your choice to be a person of substance or not of substance. That's your choice. I'm not here to judge. But then to use the tools that are available to everyone to be able to get some of that influence that you so deserve or desire. No one wants to make content to be not influential. An influencer is someone whose words and actions influences others to do something, to take action. So if you say, hey, everybody, please show up at this conference, and 0 people show up, I don't care how many followers you basically have 0 influence. And so there's nothing wrong with being an influencer. I just think we have to disassociate it with some of the negative imagery that we see on social media. Because the reason why you wanted to be a guest on TV or on a radio program is because you want people to be influenced by your words, to sway them to take a different course in life, to do something that's going to impact them in a positive way.
I think that's actually really nicely put. I was thinking on every word you're saying then, it's completely right, because the word that I hear thrown around as the worry is the word fame. They don't want to become famous. You know, in the UK in particular, you don't want to be seen. You're kind of like, not everyone, but you don't really want to be super famous. Yet they'll take a PR opportunity or they'll put a piece of content out there and be happy when it goes viral. So there is that odd balance. But I like what you said, where it's just about, it's the depth, isn't it? It's the depth of what you're talking about and what it's related to, and you're not disassociating what you're actually trying to say as a storyline. You're not faking being on a private jet. You're not wearing a fake Rolex. You're just giving value, whether it's a how-to video or a lifestyle video, whatever it is, to influence someone towards something, hopefully with good moral standing. Chris,
Freddie, before you move on to the next question, I want to talk about the word fame and famous.
Go on.
You're saying in the UK, no one wants to be famous.
Well, not everyone would say that, but yeah, you're right. Yeah.
Yeah, a lot of people wouldn't want that because they don't want that kind of attention or spotlight.
I think so, yes. Yeah.
So there's conflicting ideas here. You want to be well known. You want to be highly regarded. You want to be a captain of your industry. You want to win the awards and the accolades, but you don't want fame. Fame means to be well known for something. Now, you don't want to be famous for shaking your butt. Maybe you do, maybe you don't. You don't want to be famous for saying inappropriate things, but you do want to be famous or well known for the thing that you want to be well known for. It makes no sense. People hire or buy from people they know, like, and trust. The first part of the battle is to be known. So I think it's kind of a ridiculous concept. And I know it's a very American thing for me to say, and I'm probably going to get some pushback and hate in the comments. Bring it on. I think in this day and age, it's quite important. If you believe in the service or product that you make that is superior to the other products and services, you have an opportunity or an obligation, I believe, to make sure as many people who are in the market to buy your product or service know about you versus an inferior product or service. Okay? We know this. So if you make a healthy taco, if that exists, then you owe it to your community to be able to let people know why your taco is healthier than the alternative that's using trans fatty acids or whatever it is that they're using, or non-GMO corn. You're trying, and if you do it in a sustainable way and you pay fair wages, you have to do everything in your power, in my opinion, if you're an entrepreneur, to make sure people choose yours over the others, because you should strive to make a superior product. There's a quote from Ana Lopez right behind me. And it's a quote that I love, which is, every dollar you spend is a vote for the world you want. I add in to live in. So when people don't know about your product or service, they vote to support the other person. Yeah. And this is something I struggle with, because I think I'm a really good, genuine, authentic coach who cares about people. But I know there are people who have superior marketing and squeeze funnels and tripwires who will get most of that money. And I'm sad because I have to fight them, because what I hear on the other side is people not getting very much and giving up a lot to get there, because they were manipulated to take action, to do something that they didn't realize they were part of some kind of squeeze. And that's sad for me. So I think if you, when we start with this, and I think this is a good premise to start with, if you believe that your product or service, even by 1%, is superior to the alternative, you have an obligation to win in the marketplace. And the way you win in the marketplace is you make sure more people know about your high quality product or service than the competitor. That way they're starved and you're fed. And you can further your mission by hiring higher quality people, to pay your people more money, to be able to do good things with the revenue that you have. So I think people would say, I don't want to be famous, is because they think of all the trappings of fame. So from where you are, relatively anonymous, to being world famous, where people are hounding you in the streets, there's a long graduated progression towards that. And when it starts to get really uncomfortable and it takes you off mission, stop there.
I really like that. And it actually goes back to what you said maybe 40 minutes ago around, what's the other alternative? If it's the cheapest way, if you're a startup business, what's the cheapest way to get customers? It's to start building out content, and you're thinking about it super logically. And I think you're completely right with the word fame. People maybe are still in that frame of mind where they think fame is being Brad Pitt, being like a massive celebrity. That's not going to happen. There's a great story with Alex Hormozy, isn't there, where he was launching his book. He was a week out from his launch. He had 500,000 people signed up for his Zoom event, spent 10 million on ads, and everything was going right. And in the week before, he asked 13 people, "Are you coming to the event?" And only one knew he even had a book coming out. That shows the difference between where we think we are, and where we think the goal is going to be. And it's probably nowhere near. Which is, I think, the way you put it there, I think, was spot on. Right at the beginning of this call, we just really actually before we started recording, you just touched on a couple of really interesting things that you've come across recently. And one obviously is content marketing. The other one was, I think you said permission marketing. Is that right?
Yeah, they're the same concept. So there's a book that Seth Godin wrote years ago called Permission Marketing. He goes, and he defines marketing like this, as far as it relates to permission marketing, where people volunteer to participate in a long-term marketing campaign with you of increasing value. And I really like that concept. So you don't bother people. You ask them, if you're interested in this, raise your hand. If you raise your hand, I promise, and I'll hold up my end of the bargain, to not ever bother you, but to give you something that you anticipate to find it rewarding and to better your life. But I can't keep doing the same thing because I have to increase the value. Otherwise, it becomes noisy. So Seth is very popular amongst creative people and marketers because there's this idea or an ideal about how things should be done. It's not horribly pragmatic in terms of like step by step how to do this. And I've been scratching my head thinking, I love the concept, but what is the practical way to do this? And I've been thinking about it, and I've come across a couple of things. Number one is, as a service professional, if you're really good at what you do, you should be able to prove it, to demonstrate your expertise through some kind of visual storytelling format. And so we think, oh my God, what if you're a person who doesn't do anything sexy or interesting? The good news is you don't have to be, but you have to figure out a creative way to demonstrate it. So I'm in my feed now actively searching for people who do really boring jobs, who have interesting content, that I become interested in them. Take, for example, a dry cleaner. So there's a person who shows you his board and has 5 different stains on it. And he says there are basically 5 different stains categories, and the way you want to treat them is different depending on the stain. So there's like a biological stain, there's an ink stain, and he goes through all these things and you treat them differently. And the last one, he's like, this one is really tough to get out. Chances are you have 50-50 shot of making this work. And he goes, how do I know this? Because I'm a dry cleaner. And he gets into all this stuff and he teaches you this stuff. And I was thinking, I don't think dry cleaning is very sexy. And in fact, before he made that piece of content, I could care less. There's another lady, she goes by the name of Madame Sweat, and she talks about odors, right? Odors from your pits, from downstairs, from everywhere. And she goes and says, is it smelling funky down there? It's like, I'm going to tell you 3 things you should do or not do. And my name is Madame Sweat. I'm a personal hygiene expert. And then she talks about this. So even gross subjects like body odor, there's a person talking about it. And she has a very interesting look. She has very thick round glasses and I forget what it's called, bangs cut very close to her eyebrows and a black turtleneck or something. She just talks about this. She kind of looks like a hip character from The Invincible, the one who invents things.
Yeah, Edna Mode.
I'm sorry, it's not Invincible. What is the
Incredibles?
Incredibles.
Yeah, you got
Incredibles. Yeah, and she has them all. It's like very designer kind of look to her. And I think it's beautiful. So what I do is trying to help people create a system that they can create content centered around their expertise, where they're demonstrating on a day-to-day basis, and they find a format that works for them. And the more you do that, the more people are like, I'd like to work with Freddie. I'd like to work with Chris, because they can demonstrate what they do. There's the talking the talk, but I'm more interested in walking the walk, and then you talk the walk.
I love that. So it's like authentic and then super based on results, like helping you get exactly what I said you were going to get at the start. I feel like I have to mention this guy to you. Have you heard of the Spud Man in the UK?
No.
Okay, you're going to love this guy. So there's this guy in a place called Tamworth, which is a town in sort of the middle of England, and he has a jacket potato van. He just makes jacket potatoes. He's been there for 20 years. He's got a big pink mullet. And his son gave him TikTok and said, why don't you have TikTok? He's got to be 45 years old. And he started making content on TikTok of him making these potatoes, and the same old guy and the old lady would come every single day and he'd make this potato. And he sold it for something like £4. So like what's $5.50? Like a really cheap, very normal priced thing. He went super viral on TikTok, super viral on Instagram, YouTube and Facebook actually, just from being so authentically him and taking you to the wholesalers and showing you how much a potato costs and then what his markup is, to the point now where he's got a queue of 1,000 people every day, and he has done for the last 2 years. He goes to the biggest events in the UK, and he's able to then sell recipe books on how to make a jacket potato or whatever it is. But it feels like a very similar way, right? I don't care. about how to make a baked potato. In fact, I would know I don't really eat them, but guess what? Now I eat them quite often. I would be interested in going to visit him when we're back in the UK, and I'd buy one of his books. Like, he's gone super authentic, and it feels like the same way where he's shown me what he does. He's got me interested. He's then basically asked my permission. Do you want anything else? And I've gone, okay. Do you know what? After 2 years, I'm like, yeah, okay, I like this stuff. Does that make sense? Is that a similar thing to what you're saying in practice?
That's exactly what I'm talking about. There are now more and more cases of people, I would say hundreds, maybe thousands of different service professionals that do what they do that normally without social isn't that interesting. But with social and their ability to tell a story and visually kind of bring you in, you decide when you want to engage with them. They never harass you. They just keep making more potatoes. I'm not that interested in potatoes, but now you're doing the marketing for this person.
Yeah, exactly.
That's pretty powerful.
So powerful as well. Yeah, I think you'll like his stuff. He's funny. He's got a very sort of West Country English accent. He's from the farmer's belt.
Yeah,
Chris,
there are a lot of people do this. You know, like there's a Cajun guy who does like crawfish bakes, and he's from Louisiana. He has a French Cajun accent. He wears a jean bib. You know, he looks full on country, and he's like, "Woo, that is going to be some spicy." You know, the way he speaks, I can't do that. If you're Cajun, I apologize in advance. But I don't want to eat any of that. He's cooking like 35 gallons of crayfish, and it's just ridiculous in the size of the pot he uses. But it's a lot of personality. And now I think, if I'm in Louisiana and I want to eat some crayfish, I'm going to go and talk to Jimmy Bob or whatever his name is. But there are a lot of people who do this. And I want to teach creative people, service professionals, how to do this.
I think it's amazing. Chris, I'm very aware of your time because it's right at the start of your day in LA, so I won't keep you much longer. I just want to finish on, if someone is a business owner listening to this, they're creative, they're not sure how to take their content to the next level to drive them a bit more business, what's the one piece of advice that you'd give them that can help them have a really nice 2025 and see some real results over the long term, start to build towards to help their business?
Yes. So this is an opportunity for me to tell you what to do. But if you're interested to join me in a program that I'm teaching people how to do this, go start watching Instagram and TikTok with a different lens. Just look for service professionals who are doing something that you're like, oh, that kind of tickles my imagination a little bit. The way they wash that car, the way they clean that rug, or they mow that lawn. Really boring businesses, and deconstruct the framework, the structure in which how they're presenting themselves, and ask yourself, what is it that I can do? And to figure out what your catchphrase is, like how I said, I'm Madam Sweat, I'm a personal hygiene expert, to be able to say what you do in less than 5 seconds so that you come up with a hook, you have your catchphrase, and then you just show people what it is that you're doing. And the thing that you should try to do, if at all possible, to present this content visually without you talking. Unless you have a really beautiful voice, I would avoid that, because if it's purely visual storytelling, it means the widest possible audience can see this and they can understand your content without turning the volume up. Because sometimes we're in bed, we're trying to watch it, mindful of our partners. We don't want to wake them up. So if you could just do this visually, you're going to do much, much better. I would do that.
So that's a great bit of advice. We're all sat there on our phones, aren't we, trying to not wake someone else up. Chris, yeah. I really appreciate your time. Thank you so much for joining us. It's been an awesome chat.
Thanks, Freddie.
If you like these episodes, feel free to subscribe to our Healthy Hustle newsletter below, where you'll get behind the scenes information from our guests, as well as from the studio operator who helps us create these cinematic episodes. It's also full of business advice and tips, and it will help you join the community of healthy entrepreneurs.